He's been vegan now for how many years? It's been like
7, 6.
No, it ain't
6. It's been 6. It has been 6. It's 2022.
4 or 5 years. It's been some years. It's been some years.
Wow.
Change, yes, change is his. He got more energy than me. Wakes up just like jumps out of bed. I'm still like groggy and everything. It's fine. But yes, health very, 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 very important. And we all, especially our community, do need to make those choices.
My wife called me a doughboy.
I never.
A doughboy. She called you a doughboy. What?
She called me a doughboy.
Never.
I was adding those X's to my shirt. I was getting to where I would have to shower in a hoodie level.
Well, maybe you were like her tough doughboy. Like, remember Ice Cube was doughboy back in Boys in the Hood. So maybe you were like the Ice Cube doughboy, not the Pillsbury doughboy. You know what I mean? There's a difference. There's a nuance there.
Well, see,
he gave good hugs. I'll say that.
There you go. Those big doughy hugs.
Big doughy hugs. But seriously, thank you for joining us. You are an inspiration and someone that's provided a lot of insight for our family. Literally, watch your channel.
We wake up, we get to work. We work from home, and we turn you on, and that's usually how we start our day. So
wow.
I feel like we've already had conversations. I feel like we already know you.
Yeah. I don't even need this. This is not.
Well, I'm really flattered. It's it's like when you do stuff like this, you're always looking for your people, and it's like I'm just gonna go out into the wilderness and in a world that where not everybody understands where people like me come from, and I said, I'm gonna see if I can find some other people who also maybe feel like we were born on the wrong planet, maybe that there's a better reality out there for us, and I love what you're thinking because. I truly believe that people that think like yourselves are the true visionaries of the community. I think that you're going to have children and grandchildren that are going to do amazing things, and it's because you have that intentionality about the success of your legacy and your family. That does not happen by accident. So congratulations to both of you.
You're gonna melt her.
I'm a big mush ball, so don't get me.
So you're the true. You're the true. Well, you're the dough girl. So the doughboy and the dough. Okay, that's a good match.
Well, first thing I want to get into, the All Black National Convention is around the corner. Tell us a little bit right now. I know it's going to be held in Charlotte, North Carolina. Tell everybody about the All Black National Convention and why they need to go.
Well, the All Black National Convention was something that we created because I couldn't find any conventions that gathered people that think like us. I felt that the other conventions, while they certainly did their best, one of the fundamental flaws that I felt existed is, and this is really my finance background talking, is that I know money is power. Money is power, which means that the person who writes the check makes the rules. So if I go to a convention and it's designed allegedly for the liberation of Black people, I never envision that you have, Black liberation brought to you by McDonald's. Or that the revolution, is going to be televised, but Walmart is going to be the sponsor. It's not to say that there's anything wrong with that or that these people they're not doing their best. But what happens is that when you're really trying,
corporations.
Wait, say it again.
Revolutions typically aren't funded by corporations or government, right?
Right. I mean that's very the concept of revolution is somewhat anti-establishment. So the establishment is not going to fund something that's anti-establishment. Not that we're anti anything. I don't think we have to be anti, but I do think we have to be free. And freedom means that when you're talking about something as delicate as race in America, you got to be ready to have those hard conversations. America needs. It's like we're a hospital patient. We need surgery, and we need radical surgery. You can't fix this with a Band-Aid and some toothpaste or whatever. You really have to go deep. So the convention, I'm proud of it because we sponsor it ourselves. Like we just go to the people, raise the money, get it done, and it works. So we have dozens of experts in every area from crypto to politics to stock market investing to relationships, everything that we need to heal and to love each other. And the convention is a great place for people that want to learn, that want to connect with other like-minded people, and also just want to have fun. So it's turned into like a family reunion, man. I'm really proud of it.
That's dope. So what can people expect? Like, right, what are some key takeaways to make me want to go?
Well, one thing that we started doing this year is we realized that a lot of people out in the dating market, and they're dating a bunch of garbage. They're like you're trying to grow, you're trying to elevate your life, you're trying to get your stuff together, and you're just kind of meeting people that aren't where you are, right? So what my wife does, my wife is a licensed therapist. She's been seeing couples. She's been a couples counselor for a long time. So she said, why don't we do speed dating at the convention and just hook people up, right? And it worked. Like, we already had one wedding came out of speed dating from last year. People, ain't no telling how many people got together, for short term, long term, whatever it is, right? And that was like one of the things that we came up with, because we said, okay, what are all the areas in your life that really help you know if you're going to have a good life or not, right? So we figured it starts with health, wealth, and relationships. So we also have like medical doctors that aren't just like the ones that work in major hospitals, but we have people that are like holistic healing doctors and doctors that have ideas that are not mainstream, like Dr. Christina Parks, who gave that really blow up testimony at the Michigan House of Representatives during the pandemic. Yeah, and they banned her. But we were like, hey, you know what? Maybe she's got a point. She's super smart. She got a PhD in cell and molecular biology from the University of Michigan. You can't ignore a sister like that. You got to at least hear what she has to say, but then at the same time, we respect those people that climb the corporate ladder. So one guy that's joining us this year is a guy named Larry Miller, who's the chairman of the board at the Air Jordan brand. And you talk about just understanding the culture. I mean, he shapes the culture. Every kid wants to wear Jordans. And it's because of Larry Miller's brain that happened. But Larry Miller is also a very conscientious member of the community. So he cares about things like incarceration. He also is a guy that can really talk to us about what it takes to really build and scale a business. So we got everybody from millionaires and billionaires to people that, that are activists out in the streets doing the work with our kids. We wanted to just kind of connect with anybody and everybody who puts Black people first. That's all we ask people to do. We don't even care what political party you're in. I don't get into Democrat, Republican. Are you pro-Black? If you are, then we got something for you.
Nice. Now, I know we kind of jumped into it because we, have already been watching you. But for our viewers at home, our new viewers, tell us a little bit about yourself. How you grew up. What brought you to where you are now, and you can even get a little tidbit about how you and your wife met, because been hearing so much about, you as an economist, your wife was a psychologist.
Yeah. Well, she's a therapist and a social work professor.
Got a therapist, and so tell us about that. How you guys met? I want to hear about it.
Well, let me tell you how I met my wife. You have those memories that just stick with your brain like forever. I met her when I was 22 years old, and I was a first-year graduate student at Indiana University. And I saw her, literally saw her across the crowded room. I remember the very moment I saw her. And another guy was trying to talk to her, and I was kind of mad because the guy that was talking to her was a guy that I didn't like. So I'm like, okay, this old hating ass, So I went over to talk to her, and I made up some stupid question. Like I said, what book are you reading? I didn't even care what book she's reading, to be honest with you. And she greeted me with this big, beautiful smile, and that was the first thing I noticed. So like when I mentor young ladies, that's one thing I mention is that when you greet a man with a smile, I don't care how hard he is or whatever, like that just makes him feel good, And I remember she greeted me with this beautiful smile. And I noticed her name rhymed with my grandmother, Felicia. My grandmother's name was Felicia Taylor. Her name was Alicia Taylor. So we sat there and we talked, and we had the best conversation ever. And then we went to another part of the library. And I remember she got up and she was walking in front of me, because you know how we do as guys. We like to walk behind you, kind of see what we're working with. And I think that was when I fell in love. that was when the violin started playing, and oh man. And yeah, buddy. Let me tell you, they ain't nothing. God ain't never built nothing like the Black woman ever. I always joke and say when I was single and dating, I would only date a Black woman. It wasn't because I was excluding anybody. It's just because other women in my mind just simply could not compete. So when I go to California and the guys don't date the sisters, I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, I don't understand. So anyway, long story short, man, we actually became friends because ironically, I was dating somebody at the time, and I'm gonna be honest to say I was a little intimidated by her beauty. I'd never seen anything that beautiful in my life. And I saw these other guys, I was 22. I was kind of learning who I was. and I didn't have a lot of guidance from my father in terms of confidence about how to step to a girl and all that. I was just this nerdy guy who was studying all day, and so so I just kind of didn't say much, and so long story short, we were friends for a very long time. And then later on in life we got together, and it's been great because I can tell you that being married to your best friend, it makes a big difference because that friendship smooths over a lot of the rough patches in your relationship. And I think that what young people should understand too about marriage and relationships and all that is there's no such thing as a fairy tale. Like every fairy tale you were ever fed, like you need to get it out of your head. It's gonna be work, and anything that you want though, you work for it. Like if you want to lose weight, you work in the gym. If you want to graduate from school, you work in the library, right? So if you want your marriage to last, like my parents are doing, they're in their 48-year anniversary this week, and they had to do the work. It wasn't easy. So that's been what it's been, man. And I can tell you, when I literally say I married the woman of my dreams, I'm not making that up. I look at her every day. I'm in awe of her every single day. So thank you for asking about my wife. I could talk about her all day.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
So from you, what made you transition from the school you were at before? If you want to mention it, feel free. The school you were at before to now providing just a wealth of information, especially about economics, to Black people. Like, what made you want to turn on a camera and start preaching content that I will say I am sure comes with a lot of scrutiny from certain groups?
Yeah, well, you know what happened? I had a dream growing up, and it was the wrong dream. I used to believe in things like a dream job. Like I grew up in a household where we didn't have very many entrepreneurs, and everybody just went to work every day. So I always thought that the best thing you could hope for in this country is to have a great job that pays you lots of money. The idea of being independent and all that wasn't even in our vocabulary. So I noticed early, my parents put it in my head that if you want to get a good job and make a lot of money and all that, you got to go through education. So I got as much education as I could get, and it worked reasonably well. I got my PhD in finance, and I was about 30 years old. It was kind of weird to be in school till you're 30, but it took that long. It was really hard to do. And I could write my own ticket. I literally was the only Black person in America, male or female, to get a PhD in finance that year. Like that year, there was nobody else Black. So it was that hard. All my friends did not graduate. So I get this degree, and I'm excited. Finally, I'm gonna go from making almost nothing, like getting evicted from my apartment because I couldn't pay the rent, to literally making like $10,000 a month. That was a big jump, So I'm 31 years old, making $115,000 a year. I thought that was the dream, and what I did not know is that if you think about your dreams like a building with different floors, it's like if you get to the 5th floor and you think you're on the roof, and then you find out that there's a penthouse and there's other levels above that, and that there's so much higher you can go. That's kind of what my story was, right? And then also you find out that maybe your dream isn't what you thought it was. It's almost like a little bit of a nightmare because I was making good money, but I was in a space where my culture didn't fit. Who I was didn't really fit so well. Me wanting to be a Black man first just didn't work. It was almost like, okay, we'll accept you as long as you leave all that other Black stuff behind. And I wasn't trying to do all that, right? So I also realized as I was teaching my students every day, here I was at Syracuse University, I'm teaching all these students, most of whom, and I loved them all, and most of them weren't Black. Like I'd have 2 Black students a year. And I'm teaching them all these secrets to wealth. Like these guys are they're wealthy families. They're going off to Wall Street making millions of dollars based on the stuff that people like me were teaching them. And I said, I really want to teach this to my people. And I don't want to teach it to just 2 or 3 people a year. I want to teach it to 200,000 people a day, if I could, whatever it is, right? So at that time, along comes this thing called social media. And also things like YouTube and the internet is really starting to grow. It's not in its complete infancy, but it's still kind of new. And I'm a techie guy. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, if I start a YouTube channel or maybe a website, maybe I can reach thousands of people. So instead of teaching 30, 40 students a semester, I could teach, thousands of people at once. And so I started my first YouTube channel at that time. I actually started my first one in 2007. And then I let it go after a couple of years because I didn't, I don't know. I think I lost interest. Then I picked it back up around 2012. And what I found was that it was the most effective way to get the right message to the right people without having to interrupt it. Because before that, I would go on TV and all that. And that's when I started learning media kind of has an agenda, and it ain't the black agenda, right? So you get on there, and it's like you're on there for 5 minutes, you talk for a second, then they cut you off, or they want you to talk about what they want you to talk about. Whereas the internet is beautiful because it allows me every week now, I can reach over 1 million black people a week, and I can talk as long as I want about whatever I want, as long as I don't get demonetized. And it's been the most effective information transmission process I've ever had. So this is the purpose. This is what I love this so much that there's literally not a single job anywhere in any university anywhere that you could offer me for any amount of money that would lead me to want to walk away from this.
That's amazing. That's so amazing.
Thank you.
So let me ask you this. What do you think is the most important thing that our people, or you can even give like a top 3 thing that our people are doing wrong in terms of our economic well-being and future financial success? Like, what are the top 3, or you can give me the top 1 thing that we should be doing that we're not?
Okay, well, one thing that we can do better is we got to stop giving all our money away. So if you think about building wealth, like playing on a football team or basketball team, you need offense and you need defense. If a football team only has offense and they don't have any defense, they're still going to lose because they're going to get outscored every time. So you can't win a championship if every time you get the ball, you just give it to the other team. If I'm the quarterback and my goal is to throw an interception on every play, it doesn't matter how great my team could have been, we're not going to win anything, right? So when you think about your money, one of the rules of building wealth with money is you got to keep the money that you have. And that means little things like buying black. I think that if we want to build the wealth in our community, we got to be very intentional about seeking out the people that will receive the money that we spend, the same way a quarterback has to seek out his own receivers that he's going to pass the ball to. He avoids passing it to the defense. He wants to pass it to his own receivers so they can get the ball down the field. That's how you win. It's also part of defense. You have to defend your economic strength as a community. And I think as black people, we've been taught to have too much of an open economy. So we make 1.6 trillion a year. And what happens is that becomes a support base for everybody else's economy except ours. And you don't have to hate anybody to do this. You don't have to walk around and say, I don't like white people. I don't like Asian people. None of that is appropriate. We don't get into that. I'm just saying, just love yourself. Care about your own children as much as you care about everybody else's children. Take care of your own family before you take care of everybody else, because we have been trained to really be servants to other people. And that just does not work well in a society like this. The second thing I think that we should think about as well is we have to really process what has happened to our families, right? The war on drugs, mass incarceration, all those years of everybody getting hooked on dope, killed over dope, locked up over dope, people getting traumatized by watching all this happen in their communities, that has really messed us up in our heads. My father went to prison for drugs. My baby brother went to prison for drugs. My stepfather that raised me, he was hooked on heroin, right? Drugs were everywhere in my family. So my thing is, I don't have any tolerance for drugs because I've seen what dope does to a family. And if you watch a show, like if you watch like Love and Hip Hop or something like that, almost all of the people on there, if you listen to their story, their origin story is, something about a broken family, something related to drugs, something related to the violence that comes from that or the incarceration that comes from that. So what we have to do is we got to heal. We got to heal. Starting just with the trauma of all that. We're way up here on the trauma scale. My wife is a certified trauma professional, and you have no idea how deep trauma can affect everything you do. How you spend your money, how you choose your relationships, how you even eat. It affects everything, right? So we got to heal ourselves, and then we must heal our relationships. Like if I'm dealing with you as my brother, I got to learn how to deal with you in a way that's going to be productive instead of looking at you as my enemy. Same thing. If I'm dealing with a black woman, I got to find some way to have patience with what she's gone through, and then vice versa, so that we can build something that's going to actually have a lasting generational legacy. Why is that important for wealth? Well, because if you look at most wealthy societies and most wealthy individuals, it's almost always connected to family. There are some parts of the world, my friend is from Africa, and she said, I have no idea how African Americans even think, that you can ever build wealth when you don't have families. If you don't have stable families, you can't build. She said, where I come from in Africa, the idea of building wealth without family doesn't even make any sense. Because wealth is something that requires you to have multiple people working to the same goal over multiple generations, right? So when you compare that to scenarios where you got one person trying to do it all by themselves and they're starting over every generation because nobody left you anything, nobody left you an insurance policy, no inheritance, no nothing, you can't win that game. It's a stop and go game. So long story short, those would be a couple of areas. I know you asked for 3, but those are the first 2 that come to mind. I think that's enough.
So understanding in regard to the solution, right? But like you said, there's trauma, and that trauma, and feel free to, if you push back on this, if you feel that trauma extends, very far lineage, right? We're talking Black American slavery level from the beginning of that. So how do you condition a people, which I agree in regard to, the things that we have to do economically, but how do you get people to do it, right? I think that's the hardest part. Well, I think the solutions are great. I think even before the solution, how do we even get people to buy into that solution in a large enough quantity of people to where it matters, right? So, like, for example, you, myself, my wife, your wife, people, there are a lot of people like us, perhaps, that go, yes, agree, let's do that. But for a larger majority, it's a re-education process where people don't even want to be. So how do we get that? How do we start there? What do we do to get people to even recondition their thoughts about economics and spending and investing and saving?
Well, number one, I'll say that on the economic front, I see a lot of positive developments. Like, for example, if you look at just what, the guys that Earn Your Leisure are doing and others, I mean, they're getting it done, and I love it. I love it. And I just want to remind us to make sure we're getting it done for the right reasons, because money is about more than just, driving a fancy car and having nice clothes, right? Money is power. Money's about well-being and security and being able to love your children the way you want to because you don't have to go to work every day or whatever it is, right? So money ain't just about the material side. And if you get stuck on the material side, then unfortunately you're operating on a frequency that's gonna leave you sad and depressed when you realize material items can only make you so happy. Material items only become another type of dope, and eventually with dope, you eventually become immune to it. It doesn't make you happy anymore. So you got to go deeper than that. But that's another process. Now, in terms of lifting the masses, one of the things I really believe that we can do is actually, and I'm gonna say this in a way that is not at all offensive. I know Kanye got in trouble for mentioning the Jewish community. I'm gonna mention them, but not in an anti-Semitic way at all. I have an admiration for what they've accomplished as a community because it's not like they have 100 million Jewish people in this country. They are a very small percentage of this country, but they have a tremendous amount of power that outweighs their numerical presence. It's not like they are able to, for example, all show up at the polls and move the whole election because there's so many of them. They don't have the numbers. So how do they have so much power? How do they own so many banks and how do they control so much in Hollywood and everything else? Well, it's because they have a culture where their leadership makes sure that they're economically solid. If you're economically solid, then you have the ability to do things that far outweigh your numbers. And what do I mean by that? So what's the translation for Black folks? Well, we have people in our community that are at different levels of development. Some of us are going to figure it out in a generation or two. Some of us already have it, understand it now. Well, if you're training your children to be powerful, if you're building wealth for them, if you're teaching them the keys to wealth, teaching them how to build businesses, things like that, well, what's going to happen is they're going to have an outsized influence on the community and the culture because they're going to be sitting where Byron Allen is, for example, who just bought $100 million house, who's sitting on massive media outlets that influence millions of people. Do you understand? So what I would say is, rather than waiting for everybody to kind of get it, I would like to actually, what I love doing actually is I like preaching to the choir. The whole church ain't the choir, but the choir is going to sing the loudest. And I'm just trying to get them to sing louder so that the people that are just listening are going to take in a different message. So ultimately, I guarantee you, if that top 10% I'm talking about top talented 10th in terms of not education, not in terms of wealth. I'm talking about just in terms of commitment to this idea of bettering yourself and breaking generational curses and elevating who you are. If that talented 10th goes 100% hard, everybody else is going to follow. Because people tend to like to play for the team that's winning. And that's what it is. When you're showing, for example, I had more influence when people saw that I was winning. When I wasn't winning, certain people didn't pay attention to me. But other people, when they saw that I was winning in certain ways, and it might be something silly, like they might see that I have a certain amount of money, or they might see I have a certain amount of reach, a certain amount of influence, they became more persuaded by what I had to say, right? So that's what it is. We keep producing our winners, and that's going to influence the culture.
That is. Well, yeah. So this is late night grunting. Okay, we eat.
But it's like the 20th Twizzler today.
Well, the person that worked.
Oh, you a Twizzler guy?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you know the Twizzlers are what made me into a doughboy too. Well, I got my banana. I'm gonna be grubbing too. Then let's go for it.
So that's the first argument. Because typically I would go like, no, we have to get the masses. The approach of really building a select few to buy in and to build from there, that's different, and there's a lot of merit there. I was listening to it, and I was like, oh man, I don't know if I agree with that, but that there's a lot of merit there. I agree. That makes sense.
Well, if you can strengthen, a smaller group, get them real strong.
You can build from
then
there.
they'll influence those around them, and so on and so on and so on. But that's a very good point, because usually we hear, need to get out to as many people as possible, spread the messages as wide as you can.
Well, that makes sense. It's like luxury brands, right? Luxury brands,
Mm-hmm.
they understand that they're not going to sell 1 million units. They're going to sell 10,000 units, and that's going to be their revenue. So that makes sense. That's very interesting. Okay, so you have a book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power.
Yes.
Yeah, tell us about that. We will be getting that for our son.
Yes. So
Awesome.
The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, without giving away the whole book, give us a couple commandments that we need to think about, that our audience needs to think about.
Well, so the 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, that book came because I wanted to try to do something that was definitive and a simple guide for families to follow if they really want to understand the game of wealth and power. So you can think of it almost a little bit like the 48 laws of power for Black wealth, except it's not 48, it's actually just 10. And I what I like to do is I like to lay out simple templates that if we follow those templates, that can allow us to really win this game, because you can win this game. But maybe it's because I understand it so well that it's simple for me. So I wanted to make it simple for everybody else. And what it also is inspired by is, if you look at powerful families or any powerful organization, any powerful entity, it's almost like being gang affiliated. The world is run, the game of economic warfare is played with various gangs. Apple Corporation, that's basically an economic gang. What is it? It's a group of people. They wear the same uniforms. They have the same little logo. They speak the same rhetoric. They have the same goal, right? They're a gang. The NAFTA is an economic gang where America, Canada, and Mexico got together and formed a trade union where they all kind of work together and support each other, right? They have the Asian Pacific Union. That's an economic gang. Gangs are everywhere, right? So your family is supposed to be your first economic gang. That's where everybody's on code. Everybody has certain principles and values that they live by. Like, for example, my father used to say, you don't steal from somebody in your own family. Now, my daddy never said don't steal from anybody. Not to say he'd endorse that, but he never said that. He never said, son, stealing is wrong. No, he said, steal it. There's nothing lower than somebody who steals from their own family. And that was him establishing codes of conduct to say, look, whatever you do in the world is what you do in the world, but what you do in this family has to meet a certain standard or the family will boot you out, right? So ultimately, this is very important, because in order for you to achieve a goal as a team, think of it like a football team. If you don't follow the rules of the team, they're going to kick you off the team no matter how good you are. because they know that the team has to be on the same page in order for the team to win. Wealth is a team sport. So that's what this whole book kind of does, is it lays out templates that families can alter to their, to their own preference. And so one of them, for example, is everyone should be an asset to the family, never a liability. Well, where does that come from? Well, I explain it in more detail in the book, but basically it comes from the fact that many of us know exactly what it feels like to have relatives who will do things like borrow money from us and never pay it back, or who will disrupt the family. Maybe you got a drug addiction and now you're draining resources from everybody else in the family, or somebody who walks around like somebody owes them something. You living in your mama's basement in your drawers, smoking weed and playing Xbox all day, and your mama's out working hard to pay the rent, and you 28 years old. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. You're a grown-ass man.
I agree.
Right. You're grown. You should be contributing to the well-being of the family. You need to be an asset to the family, not a liability. That's not acceptable, right? As a code of conduct. Another one is simply buying black whenever possible. Being very intentional about where you pass the ball, where you put your money, who are the receivers of the ball. Again, like football, if you're the quarterback, you aim for your receivers. You don't aim to throw the ball to the defensive backs. But that's what we do. Every time we run around spending our money with everybody except black people, and we're black people, we boycott black businesses as much as everybody else. Well, that's not going to build our wealth. That's going to drain our wealth. Another one is that black wealth training should be a rite of passage. For every black child in America, by the age of 12, should know how to start a business as a key to their economic survival, so that they're not 28 years old crying every day because they hate their job and they're being treated badly on the job. No, that shouldn't be. They should always have the ability to provide for themselves, especially for the men, because we have to acknowledge that there's a gender difference in terms of how America receives black men versus black women. I'm all for everything black women have accomplished. We're all for black girl magic and black women climbing the corporate ladder. But my wife and I have acknowledged firmly that even though she and I have the same degree, we're both highly educated black people, she knows that as a light-skinned black woman, she's received differently at her institution than I am as a radical black man. Right? We both know these things. Right? So in fact, her university, they wouldn't hire somebody like me. They have not. In fact, in their whole campus, they don't have one single African-American male on the entire faculty anyway. They have not hired one black male, right? So my point is to say that our kids have to learn these things, these realities early. You have to prepare them early, because the worst thing you want to do is to be a black person in their 30s saying, I can't feed my kids because massa won't let me, or because they won't give me this, or they won't give me that. They ain't gonna give you nothing. I mean, you deserve it all. You deserve the reparations. You deserve the support. You deserve the equality. You deserve the fairness. I'm just more of a realist to say, I don't think they're going to give it to us like that easily. I think we're going to have to be ready to compete for that, period.
Now, if I'm a parent that doesn't really have, let's just say, an entrepreneurial background, or the ability to learn to how to start a business, right? But I do want my kid to have that skill set. How do I do that?
Let me tell you a story, man. I knew that's a great question, because I get it from a lot of parents who just don't know what to do, right? They're like, I don't know how to start a business. How can I show that to my child? And I get that, right? And I knew this brother who was 31 years old, and he was making millions of dollars a year as an entrepreneur. And he went to the Ohio State University, where I went to college. And I said, how did you learn? Like, what made you become so inspired to go out and start your business and make all this money? And he said, well, when I was a little boy, my father used to say, any black man who wants to be free needs to learn how to have his own business, right? And that's all he heard his father say, right? And I said, well, did your father have his own business? He said, nah, he had a job. He said, but he used to say that to me all the time, that any black man that wants to be free should have his own business. So what happened was that this seed was planted inside his son early. Like, okay, this is what I need to figure out how to do. So when he got to college and they said, well, what do you want to study? He said, well, my dad always said that any black man that wants to be independent needs to start his own business. So you know what he did? He majored in entrepreneurship. And that's where he led. See, so here's the point. You got to understand that when you're talking about accomplishing a goal, there's the what and the how. Like, what do you want to do and how are you going to do it? But the most important question is not the what or the how. It's the why. The why is the engine that drives you to the what and the how. So parents don't have to give their kids the what and the how. Just give them the why. Like why it's important to be able to do this, why it matters that you can. And then when they have the why, what you're doing is you're shaping their culture, you're shaping their values, you're shaping their psychology. And a person who has the why instilled in them is always going to find the what and the how, right? Like, so for example, if somebody feels like they got to have a new iPhone every time it comes out because they want to be the flyest kid in school, well, they're going to figure out where to go get the iPhone, how to get the money, all that, which iPhone to buy. They're going to figure all that out, right? Because that's their culture. Their culture is, I got to have the flyest phone in order to be the flyest kid. That's what matters to me. So the same thing is true when you're talking about building wealth and power. If you just tell me, look, as a black man, as a black boy or black girl, you want to have independence, you want to have freedom, you want to be happy, you want all these things, and entrepreneurship or wealth or creation or investing is a way to get there, then they're going to figure out, they're going to fill in the blanks as time goes on. Now, in the meantime, you can put them in special programs. We have a lot of stuff going on in the Black Business School, of course, but that's not even necessary, to be honest with you. If you just give them the right value system, you'd be amazed at how far that goes.
I love that. One thing that we're doing with our son and our nephew, we're doing this. Well, he's handling more of it. I'm the homeschooler. He's the.
And we homeschool. Yeah, we've been homeschooling since our son was in 6th grade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's very, very smart, by the way.
Yeah,
thank you. And he's starting early.
Yeah, he's finishing high school year early.
His teacher was on the verge of saying, "Hey, we need to get him checked out. He might, have some, ADHD, all that." But he'll run through a book this thick, like this thick in like a couple hours. He's very, very smart kid, and that's not just because I'm mama.
We didn't trust white schools to teach our
and so now he's gonna finish school, a whole year early. He's doing great. But anywho, so we're doing this thing called Money Mondays, where every Monday, him and his nephew have to come to mainly him and pitch their money making ideas. And right now they're working on a vending machine company.
Oh.
They do their research. They call potential businesses. They try to get soft confirmations. They have a script that they're reading. They have to research the different prices, different locations. They've been doing. I've been so proud, but I've been so proud. But I would love to know what type of tips you have for young kids that our son.
High school.
Yeah, high school age. They're not out to the working world yet. How can young kids, start thinking about, financial well-being and their future financial success before they kind of get out into the world?
Well, the first one thing I would say is that, understanding that owning something is definitely a goal that will get you where you want to get to. So the first way to own a business, the easiest way to own a business is you can do this in 5 minutes and start buying shares of stock consistently. If you buy a share of stock in Disney, then you are an owner in Disney. If you buy a share of stock of Microsoft, you're an owner in Microsoft. That's good in terms of the psychology of ownership and kind of feeling like you're a part of America. You're not just, pushed out of it. You're in it, like you're in the game. When they make money, you make money. Also, I would say that having a good work ethic is really important. I remember getting my first job when I was about 11 years old and selling candy door to door. And so that really, I guess, shaped things in terms of.
What kind of candy were you selling?
You know what? It was this lady that was probably exploiting us. She would buy these boxes of candy for 50 cents. And she would give us this little script, and we were all cute little 11-year-olds, and we would go like door to door and read the script, and we sell the box for $3, and she would give us 25 cents a box and keep the rest. So I think they arrested her. I remember one day we would get in the van and go with her to some strange neighborhood, which was probably the most dangerous shit in the world.
Yeah, no, you don't get in the vans for candy.
Right. It was a mess, man. I probably should have got kidnapped and sold into child prostitution or something. But she I remember the police taking her away. So I think that she was breaking the law. I was mad because I lost my job, man. I was making good money.
Let me ask you a question. You're from Chicago.
Well, originally from Louisville, but I live in Chicago now. Yeah.
Okay, you live in Chicago. We're from Chicago. Do you remember the Scottie Pippen bar?
The Scottie Pippen bar?
Okay, so maybe they only had this bootleg bootleg candy bar in my school. But it was like a payday, but it had Scottie Pippen on it. And they used to have us selling the Scottie Pippen bar. You didn't sell Scottie Pippen bars? You didn't. There was a Scottie Pippen bar.
I believe you.
All right, look. A payday out of a rapper and was like, this is Scottie Pippen bar, it's $4. But I was doing the Bulls here.
I think selling candy is it's the number one kid hustle. Because I remember you saying that you sold candy.
Yeah.
I remember I had a lemonade stand, and then I was like, this ain't enough. And then I was like, I'm gonna make some cookies and sell sandwiches and candy. And then I was like, maybe books too. And I went and got all my old books, and I was like, why are these books selling? So I started going door to door trying to sell. Nobody wanted books, but I feel like once I started making money off of that lemonade and the candy, I was like, ooh, let's see how far this goes.
Yeah, I think it's a great hustle. I think knowing how to sell is like the best skill you can ever have, because you can buy low, sell high, and make your money. And that was really financially empowering, as a kid, to be able to just literally decide how much money I was going to make that week. And I sold candy at school, and made a ton of money every day. And so I think working hard and learning how to sell are good skills to pick up as a kid. I would say investing in the stock market, little bits of money, and just leaving it there is a great way to go. And then also just learning those secrets to entrepreneurship, and so that eventually when you build up, you can look into real estate and stuff like that. The 3 ways that people get rich in America, very straightforward. 3 ways: running your own business, investing in the stock market, owning real estate. Those are and really with stock market, you throw in maybe crypto or something like that, right? So stock market or those investments, right? And the thing is, a lot of people think that you have to be an entrepreneur in order to own a business, and that's not true. Not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. So I tell them, look, you don't have to be an entrepreneur. Just own something. Make sure you own a piece of something, because in America, that's the line. Like, you have people that own things and people that own nothing. And if you own nothing, then typically you work for people who own things. You're fueling other people's wealth. So like if I'm a renter and I'm never a homeowner, then I'm making the landlord rich, because I'm literally paying his mortgage every month. If I am a consumer and never a producer, then I'm making the corporations rich, because they own the stock of the company. I'm just buying the products, right? If I'm always an employee and I never ever own a piece of a business, well, I'm making my employer rich, because he owns the business. He gets the profits. All I get is a little paycheck that's barely going to pay for nothing. So you have to own something, and it's a matter of figuring out what really works for you.
So in the stock market, someone that doesn't even know what to look for, right? What are some things they should be looking for? Let's say, they don't have a lot of money, but they do want to start to kind of get into the stock market. What are some things they should be looking for? What are some things they should avoid when it comes to the market?
Well, what I try to tell people to avoid in general is get rich quick type situations. There's like a lot of like they have things like they call them blessing looms and all that. Anything that seems like it's real quick money is probably not going to really work that long. It might work a little bit, but it doesn't work that long. And there was a lot of those types of schemes popping up during the pandemic, because the stock market was taking off. So everybody was buying any crappy cryptocurrency that people put out there. Like, just speaking of crypto, for example, people don't know there's like literally 12,000 crypto projects that are now completely dead now. 12,000. They call them zombie coins. These are coins that raise millions of dollars, like millions of dollars in real money, probably well over $1 billion that went into these coins, where the owners got rich and then just ran off, and the coins are worthless now. So when you're looking at investing, just going with the tried and true stuff is typically the best approach. So for example, let's say you do nothing about the stock market and you simply invested. I have something I call the $5 a day plan. And it's on my website, BoyceWatkins.com. If people want to go take a look, BoyceWatkins.com. But basically the $5 a day plan says, if you invest an average of $5 a day every day, even if you randomly pick your stocks, literally don't like blindfold yourself and just randomly pick, you're going to have about about $20,000 in wealth in about 10 years, over 100,000 in 20 years, and about $250,000 in 30 years, give or take a few $1,000s. So at that point, that right there that's the whole game right there. Like, if you just know that part of the game and you do it consistently, you don't sell your stock when you buy it, then every one of your kids can start life with $100,000 in the bank. Now think about how much of a difference that makes. Broke people have to make hard choices. I was broke. I had to make terrible choices. painful choices because I didn't have any money. Imagine if I had $100,000 in the bank. You know, I could the way I could have made choices, the range of possibilities in my life would have been so much greater. So if you love your kids, in my opinion, why not make that little investment? $5 a day is $150 a month. The average car note in America is over $700 for a new car, and there are a lot of car notes that are over $1,000 a month. Isn't your child worth like a fourth of a car note? You know, and that's where culture comes into play, because there are cultures where they say, oh, hell yeah, my child's worth 10 times more than a car note. But then there's some cultures who say, nah, I would let my kids struggle just like me. And at that point, you're passing down the generational curse. And that's where the healing part comes into play. When we were talking earlier about trauma and generational curses and all the stuff we have to overcome, I'm gonna be the first to admit I'm crazy like everybody else. You know, my daddy wasn't there. You know, I had a stepfather that raised me. He wasn't quite 100% right. So yeah, there's a lot of healing that had to happen. So I got two therapists. I don't have one therapist. I got two. I got one for my marriage, because my marriage is the biggest investment I made in my life, and I'm going to invest in that to make sure we stay together, because we do better. We get money better as a team than we would apart. And then I have one for myself, because I want to be my best self. I want to heal. I want to make sure I understand all the things that limit me as a human being. So I didn't get therapists because I was having problems. You know, you shouldn't just want to fix yourself when there's a problem. You should want to elevate yourself when there isn't a problem. That way you avoid the problem, right? And that, I think, is a mindset, because sometimes we get reactionary. We react to bad things. A tragedy happens, a calamity happens, and then we respond to it. How about we avoid the tragedy altogether? You know, I mean, imagine if we could grow up where trauma wasn't just a fundamental normal part of being Black in America. That to me is my dream, where kids can grow up and have a normal life and be like, no, I never got shot when I was a kid. I never had any friends that died. Both of my parents loved me. I was happy as a child, and have that be the standard. Now we don't have that now. We have people that will make fun of you if you had a normal life as a kid. And I don't want that. I want all of our kids to be happy, period.
That's so true. That's so true. I love that. And speaking about family, we hear you talking about Black family and the importance of the Black family. Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about the importance of the Black family, keeping the Black family together,
especially related to like economics.
Yeah, well, family is an essential part of economics. Did you know that the lowest median net worth in America is that of a single Black mother with kids? Like Black women have a dual trajectory. You have some that are climbing the corporate ladder, kicking ass, taking names, and getting all the master's degrees and everything, and God bless them. But then you have a massive underclass that's really struggling financially, because it's hard to take care of kids and make all the money at the same time. I know that Black women are superheroes. My grandma was the strongest Black woman ever. I ain't never seen nobody go to chemotherapy and then go to work that day. And, you know, like that's how strong she was. She was a badass woman. But the thing is, it should never have been that way. Her world should never have been one where she had to be a superhero just to function, right? And so the same thing is true with Black men. The only other people that have a net worth as low as single Black women with kids are Black men with multiple kids in multiple households. Even Nick Cannon cannot afford all those kids. And let me tell you why. Because Nick Cannon, Nick Cannon can afford all those kids financially, but he cannot afford all those kids emotionally. He cannot afford all those kids in terms of time, because his time is limited. And what he's at risk of by building his family in that particular way, not engaging in what I refer to as Planned Parenthood properly. I'm not talking about abortion. I'm talking about just planning your parent. The area I challenge him on is to say, man, I really hate the idea that you're probably gonna pay millions of dollars in child support, because that's what you're supposed to do. But you're gonna have some of those kids that might not be happy with you because they did not have what they really wanted, which was your time. Kids don't give a damn how big of a check you can write. Only grown-ups care about that stuff. Kids just want you to like meet them in the front yard and throw a baseball with them. You know what I mean? Or show up at the little girl's ballet recital. That's what the kids want. They don't care if you're the biggest star in Hollywood. So ultimately, I think that thinking about these things is critical if you want to build wealth. You cannot build wealth if you do not think about how you structure your family.
So you don't think Future's kid cared about the 10 grand chain that he bought him for his birthday?
You know, I'm sure he thought it was real cool and all that. And he has a, yeah. I mean, well, I think Future's kids have some things to be proud of. I mean, he ain't all bad. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want to be like that guy. That's not my type of hype in terms of, the things I've seen with him as an individual. But he's an extraordinary musician, very talented. And you can't take that away from him. And there is a pride that a child gets by saying, hey, my daddy was the biggest blah, blah, blah in the world and all that. But if you want to see a prototype of how that can just go bad, I mean, just look at 50 Cent and his son. His son cares nothing about all of his father's accomplishments. His son only feels like, look, daddy wasn't there. And it is complex, though, right? We know that maybe the mother plays some part in this. I believe that it's hard for a father to maintain the respect of his children without the support of the mother. If the mother is undermining you at every available turn and even subtly saying things negative about you, children are going to side with their mama. That's what I did. That's what a lot of kids do. So to me, the solution is if you're going to pursue relationships that mean something to you, you should study healthy relationships as much as you studied for that bachelor's degree. Like if I was designing curriculum for kids in school, I would have them study the things that are going to make a difference in their life. You can't just wing it. You can't just hope for the best and expect to be successful because there's too many things working against you. You have to be intentional. You got to go read some books, maybe watch some YouTube videos at least, get a therapist, whatever you got to do, because these relationships are valuable, but they're very delicate because it's hard to maintain healthy relationships in a group of traumatized people. So get help. That's what I tell people. Get help. Don't try to figure it out on your own because you're going to end up losing everything in the process. And a lot of things you're going to lose are much more valuable than money.
It's interesting because, speaking of that, you've had some very interesting opinions on rap and hip hop culture in regard to how it influences, I would say black culture, and especially when it relates to economics and values. For our audience, tell us a little bit what your thoughts are in regard to, what we say like current rap is and how it's impacting our culture.
Well, rap music is brilliant. It's one of the most extraordinary art forms in the history of music and entertainment. And it's and it was designed by us, and we should have tremendous amounts of pride in that. What has occurred, unfortunately, is that it became this very powerful force, like almost like a powerful weapon. And somebody, I believe, some external force came and aimed the weapon in a different direction than it was originally intended. I don't think that the founders of hip hop were developing hip hop to say, okay, we're going to go and mass market drug addiction to young kids. I don't think the founders of hip hop envisioned a day where we would literally celebrate murdering each other or disrespecting our women or doing all these other things that are going to destroy our lives or being proud of going to prison, right? And so hip hop is not so much the issue. It's really the bastardization of hip hop or the appropriation of hip hop. When we talk about cultural appropriation, we need to also talk about when your culture gets appropriated, but it's not necessarily, it still looks like it's your culture, right? Like it's been, you think you're the puppet master when really you become the puppet. So someone with a black face spits out a message that is completely anti-black, because you're really celebrating the death of black people. You're celebrating the traumatization, the drug addiction, the violence, the wasted money, all the wasted opportunities, the ignorance, and all these other things. So, but you let it in because it's a Trojan horse. It's like, oh, well, a black guy said it, so that must mean that it's okay, when really the black guy's being controlled by a corporation that's telling him what to say. Right. And so ultimately, I think understanding this is really important because we have to be able to do the delicate surgery to improve our music without sort of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So we have to be clear and start by saying, it's not as if every rapper is a terrible person. Some rappers become conscious about it and they kind of understand, they figure out what's going on. Like Kendrick Lamar, for example, he understands the power of hip hop as a tool for healing and addressing deep issues that affect us in so many ways. And he does it in a brilliant way. But then you have some people that just want to make $1, right? And they kind of do whatever they're told. And these individuals have to be challenged to be a little more liberated in their thinking. Become a true artist, right? A true artist reflects the entire range of the human experience. An artist is not somebody that just is going to rap about the same thing in every single song. And that's the problem. Many of our hip hop artists are not really artists, in my opinion. And that's a racial thing to some extent too, because if you look at Eminem, he's allowed to be an artist. His whole life, he's rapped about everything from wanting to kill his baby mama to, how happy he was on his birthday to everything in between, all the range of emotions that get expressed as an artist. He's kind of done that. Whereas we have a lot of our artists that kind of rap to a certain template, like there's gotta be some violence. There's gotta be some liquor and weed. There's gotta be some, disrespecting women. There's gotta be some tossing money around and excessive materialism. None of those things lead to a good life for a young black man. None of those things. And it's not like I have to prove this point anymore, because rappers are dying every single week. So now you have karma kicking into play, where you've created a massive death culture, and nobody wants to pass that to their kids, because it just gets messy.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because you're talking about corporations, right? They've the commodification of rap culture, right? And so the commodification of rap culture, at least in my opinion, feel free your thought here. The commodification of a culture has been designed to just sell our kids
to perpetuate this.
These stereotypes and lifestyles that are just going to get them arrested, because your major record companies are just owned by holding companies that also invest into private and public prison systems, right? Your beds and your rooms in prisons. So it's this interesting cycle that you see in regard to hip hop, and
it really is. I feel like a lot of artists that may have started out, they came out there, they're rapping about, bitches and hoes and, violence and gang and all that. And, as they get older and they're in the industry for a while, I feel like if they do want to evolve, because a lot of the older rappers, they'll come talk to them, you can see that they may be trying to do something, and then you won't hear from them anymore. And then there's a whole new round of young rappers saying the same thing. And I don't think that this is the majority of the black rap artists out there. There's incredible, not that well-known artists that are rapping about just amazing things, but they're not getting the deals. The young and dumb ones that are going to take that check are the ones that are going to get signed and
promoted.
It's
to mainstream.
It's
culture.
Unfortunate that that's what we all have to see as a representation of what rap culture has become. But it seems like an unfortunate cycle that I don't know how we combat that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, you're right. The world has gained a massive appetite for the African American minstrel show. Right? There's a massive demand from white and Asian people and people from around the world. They don't really want this nonsense for their kids, but they love it for your kids, right? And we're the ones who kind of have to deal with all that, right? Because we're the ones having to watch our young people die and get affected by this stuff. And so what I think has to occur, number one, is that we have to make the hard declaration to be clear that this culture is not necessarily black culture. There may be some overlap in some cases, and we're not neglecting it completely. We're not throwing our rappers in the garbage or anything like that. But that ain't black culture. That's some other culture. That's not even hip hop culture. That's toxic hip hop culture, or a specific type of hip hop culture, right? And I think also, I think that when you as a community have standards, then you can start to pressure and regulate what type of messages get out about your community. And that comes through wealth and power. For example, if I take any song that says, kill that N-word or die N-word die, and I replace that word with Jew, what's going to happen?
Oh, they're going to pull that immediately. That song won't make it past 5 seconds. And it's so interesting. The same thing if you say that about LGBTQIA groups, right? You can kill and objectify black men and women, and no one bats an eye. The moment you do that to another group, they're going to shut that down. It's because even though, feel free, correct, right here. So I think it's even because we're the largest consumer, they have the power to go and say, oh no, get rid of that shit, right? So if you talk about, in LGBTQIA power, right? That's a power structure from a larger perspective, right? They have the social power to say, no, get that off, right? If you say, your point, if you replace the N-word with Jew, oh, no. They ripped Kanye West off of Instagram temporarily or Twitter temporarily for saying something, saying something inflammatory toward Jews. We said something inflammatory toward Jews.
What was it, like a bank?
A bank said that they're going to take his money out.
Yeah, you can't bank with them because of the comment.
Imagine if America cared about black people that much, right? Like, imagine, like, oh, hey, you can't talk about killing black people? No, we're going to ban you. You're going to get banned off it. Well, you can't objectify that black woman. That's insane.
Well, you know what it is, too, is I think that we live in a world where people expect you to be able to protect your own house. They're not going to do it for you. And when you look at what Kanye West dealt with, and some things Kanye does, I can defend and support. Some stuff I don't understand. I'm gonna be honest, but right. Kanye. Yeah, he'll say something real profound, and then the next minute you'll be like, "What was that? What the fuck?" But let me say this though. When you look at Kanye's response in terms of how he was disciplined on social media for what he said, look up Mark Zuckerberg's background, the owner of Instagram, or the founder anyway, or the founder of Facebook, right, which owns Instagram. Well, he's Jewish, right? So, I mean, I'm not saying that, so he's protecting his house as he should. Seriously, if I own Instagram and you say something crazy about black people, you ain't going to be on Instagram no more, period, right? So ultimately, this is where power and ownership come back into play. And now black people, we don't own as much as we want. And I think we can rectify that over time. But what I do think that we have is a certain amount of cultural influence that I think should be and could be leveraged in a significant way. So let's say, for example, many of our athletes and entertainers that have, access to all these different entities and politicians stepped to them and said, if you don't address what's being put in the music, then we're not going to support you. Like, let's say LeBron, and let's say he got together with some of the biggest artists out here or whatever, and just told politicians when they come and say, hey, we need you to get black folks to vote for the Democrats this year. And he said, okay, well, we need you to address this issue in the music, right? Then that might be some leverage, right? So what I think we have to do is understand this. Black folks have to realize we need to stop trying to be everybody's friend without having some sort of standards and conditions and boundaries on their friendship. I'm not your friend if you're allowing people to disrespect those that I love. I can't be your political friend if you're letting my community fall into disarray and you've got the ability to help fix that. I'm not going to support or vote for you unless I see something that reflects the interests of the people that I care about. And I think so that solution is out there. And what our problem is that I think that because we're so busy trying to get everybody to like us, we don't actually fight for ideas that are originated within our own community. Like, we'll go and we'll wear a Black Lives Matter shirt in a minute without really kind of considering that wasn't really our movement. Nobody knows where the Black Lives Matter movement came from. There were 3 trained Marxists who were secretly funded by some organizations that they never revealed where the money was coming from, for a good reason, right? I'm not hating it at all. It's fine. I mean, Black lives do matter. We know these things, so I'm not here to debate that point. But what I will say, though, is where are the ideas that originate with us? Like, what if somebody embraced a Dr. Claude Anderson idea from Powernomics and said, okay, this is what we stand on. Reparations might be a good place to start. We stand on reparations. If you don't support reparations, you will not get our vote, period. Well, guess what? That's actually working a little bit. Stacey Abrams is starting to address reparations a little bit on Twitter. And that's because you have people in the community that have just said, this is our issue. We will not support you unless you support this issue. So it's just reparations is as important to us as gay marriage was to, to the LGBT community. If you can't support that, then we can't support you, period. I think that's a good policy.
I agree.
So speaking of policies, you're bipartisan, correct? You're not Democrat, you're not Republican.
No. I vote independent, or I'll vote libertarian or something. I refuse to be a Democrat or Republican at this point.
Okay. Tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about why that's a good thing for Black people.
Because if you read any book on negotiation, that book will tell you that you should never commit early or without receiving something in return. If you overcommit early and you're too eager to commit without any sort of condition on that commitment, you're selling yourself cheap. If just a little game, if you go shop for a car and you do a test drive in the car, no matter how much you love that car, you do not tell that salesman that you love the car. You act like you're okay. You act like your wife is or your husband isn't going to really let you buy it. It's too expensive. It's all right, but I don't know. I got to go to 8 other dealerships. That's what you do. That's how you get the best deal, right? Same thing. If you look at, you ever see those relationships where the woman is complaining all day about her man and her man don't do nothing, because she's so in love with him that he knows she ain't going nowhere. Well, imagine what happens when he comes home from work and her shit is packed and she's at her mama's house and she's going to lunch with a coworker that week. Oh, he straightens up real fast. He shows up with the flowers and the apologies and I love you, right? That's because when you do that, what you presented, there's a term for that, and it's basically called a credible threat. You have presented a credible threat that you're willing to walk away from the table if you do not get what you want. So the challenge that Black people have when we overcommit to a political party without any condition whatsoever is that you pose no credible threat to give them any incentive at all to do anything for you. If I was in the leadership of the Democratic Party, I would do absolutely nothing for Black people because Black people are the only group that's been trained to be loyal to a political party without asking for anything in return. And we discipline each other. Like we will crack the whip on each other. And, what are you doing, Negro? You can't be out here saying that you ain't going to vote for the different, we'll do that to it. And literally every other ethnic group, I think, looks at us and they're like, wow, how did y'all get trained to do that? And the histories in books like Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claude Anderson, he talks about how the goal was to make Black people a highly disciplined, very loyal, yet subservient and inferior group of people, right? Where you understand that your role is to serve massa and not yourself, right? So this is a long process of brainwashing that we got to break through. So the simple idea is very basic. I'm willing to vote for any political party that delivers something that I believe is going to really move the needle in my community. What I will not do is I will not vote for a party because you convince me that the other party's worse. That's a fear tactic I've read those books, right? So ultimately, I think as a community, I think it's okay for us to just simply say, okay, if I'm Black, I want freedom. Freedom means doing what I want and encourage each other to be free. So I don't tell anybody who to vote for or who not to vote for. I never do that. I just say, vote for who works best for you and your family. And the fact that it's a threat that I even say that tells you how deep the brainwashing goes. Why should it be a threat for me to simply tell families to do what's best for them? Well, but it's a threat to the people that are used to manipulating those families to their own benefit, and that's why it becomes dangerous.
Got it. So you're saying it's better if no one is offering anything substantial on either end, third party, if there's no one speaking your language, you think it's better to withhold your vote until there is someone that is willing to address the issues that we've been trying to get addressed.
Let me say it like this. Any good political scientist who's an expert on politics will tell you that abstaining is a very powerful political strategy. It's just like withholding sex. seriously, if I think about it, imagine if a woman is leaving her boyfriend because he beats her ass, and the other guy comes along and says, "Well, I'm not gonna beat your ass like him. I just might kick you twice a year." Right? And she's not gonna say, "Oh, well, I'll just go date you because I'd rather get kicked twice a year than to get my ass beat every day." No, she might say, "You know what? I'm not sleeping with either one of you. Neither one of you have earned the right to have me. I'm still here. I'm available if you act right, but I'm not. I'm going to abstain until I find something that's appealing to me." That's logical, right? It's illogical. It's illogical to believe that because she's not with person A, she has to date person B, right? That's not just illogical, but it's literally a play on her low self-esteem where somebody convinced her that you have to have a man. No, you don't have to. You don't have to pick anybody. You can literally still be single and be okay. So black people, we don't have to have a man, so to speak. We ain't got to date nobody. We ain't got to date the Democrats. We ain't got to date the Republicans. We can be single until we find a relationship that works for us. I don't think that's a radical idea.
No, that's a great way to put it. That's very clear.
So what are a few things black people need to ask for?
Well, I think reparations is a good start. I think reparations is a great rallying point. What does it look like? Reparations, in my view, should come across as a $14 trillion Marshall Plan that goes into doing all the things that you need to do to help black people heal from what has been done to us. Now, being clear with reparations, there is no amount of money. There's no check big enough to make up for what we went through. There is none. However, you can do some basic things like supporting the development of institutions that will help us to achieve the economic parity that we deserve, starting with something very basic, like if you are a descendant of slavery, you can get a no interest 30-year mortgage on a, say, $500,000 house, with a credit score above 600 or something, right? Or if you prove that you paid rent for we all pay our rent on time, right? So if you prove that you paid rent for 2 years, then you're eligible to get a $500,000 loan to go buy your first home. That would elevate black wealth by a couple $1 trillion because home ownership is literally the number one vehicle that people use to go from lower class to middle class. I think also in massive amounts of investment in the communities that have been pretty much decimated can go a long way. I think the support of things like independent black-owned schools could go a long way. There are great schools out here like Freedom Home Academy International, or King Randall has a great school in Georgia that's really educating black kids at a high level. These schools can't get the funding that they need because they're not part of that system. I think having funding available for that kind of thing will go a long way. People talked about things like student loans, forgiving the student loans for black people. I think that's fine, but that's not really compensation because student loan debt's not valid in the first place. It never should have cost you $250,000 to get a bachelor's degree or whatever you paid. That's not even realistic. It's because universities inflated the price of education.
Every time you do a video on YouTube, you're like, "Hey, who in here has more debt?" Put your hand up if you have 20,000. I have to wait till you get to the large number. I'm like, oh, wow. I went to school. I got a PhD, so I'm just waiting for. I'm like, okay, well, let's get this number higher.
Yeah. Student loans actually are the number one, or I would say number one or number two reason that black wealth is actually going backward, and the reason is, it's right there.
That's what Biden, when the whole idea. When Elizabeth Warren was talking about $50,000 in student loan forgiveness, impossible. I knew that was impossible for one reason. You give black people $50,000, who are the largest holder of these student loans, these massive student loans. You give them $50,000, you increase black wealth across the board. I think it's somewhere near 40%. Impossible. I knew that wasn't going to happen. That's impossible. I was like, maybe it's gonna be 5. I thought it was gonna be 5. $10. But no, that was not gonna happen. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean student loan.
Talk about my loans. I had to do this show because I got loans.
Yeah, man. A lot of people, stuck with loans. I had big loans too, and it's one of those things where the reason student loans was such an insidious way for black wealth to actually go down is because what it did was, you think about it, right? Who's supposed to lead us out of this wealth gap? It's supposed to be our most educated people, right? But the most educated people are the ones who have the most debt. and they also don't have the skill set to do the things that actually lead to you becoming truly wealthy, which is owning businesses and making investments, things like that. We just go to school to learn how to get a better job. I know that's why I went to school. And unfortunately, what it does is it increases your dependence on a system that we know is inherently biased and racist. On top of that, your ability to actually generate wealth has been pretty much muted because the student loans didn't actually elevate you as a wealth builder. It actually made you more dependent on that job. So you're stuck in that job, so you never get a chance to like build that company or do all the things that wealthy people eventually do, right? So we got to change how we raise our kids. So like our oldest, one of the things I said to him was, I said, college is cool, college is great, college is fun, but let me show you how to make real money so you really have some real wealth. So a lot of highly educated people have a negative net worth when they die, and so from a wealth standpoint, we're not winning.
So that is like McDonald's level. It's like you drink that coffee and your soul is gonna burn. Your soul's gonna jump out this chair. And finish this interview. But okay, so I have a question for you then. So when looking at changing spheres, this is something within Black culture we talk about a lot sometimes, and something we're covering in our show, the N-word. Right? There's a lot of debate back and forth and back about the impacts, the currency it has on culture. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Where does this relate? I would love to get your perspective on this.
Well, with the N-word, I'll admit that I've used it before. I'll admit that it doesn't offend me that much. If I know the context, it doesn't bother me. But I think that there are better things we can call ourselves than that. And I think that it's a habit that we formed that we really want to look at, because names do matter. What you call yourself and what you call each other, it really does matter. And it's just like there's studies that show, for example, if your child is named Dennis, they're more likely to become a dentist. So So what happens when you name your child King or President or whatever, right? It plays a big part.
Alexis, so I
don't know. Yeah, so it does, it makes a difference, right? So I see it almost like not so much a matter of us having to debate whether or not it could have a good context or bad context. I'm willing to let that all kind of be said and agree with it, like that's my nigga, you know what I mean? Like I get it, right? But maybe there's just a better word you can use. So that's where I stand on that. And my position has actually changed over time. For a minute, I said, what's the big deal? Why is everybody tripping over it? Then over time, I was like, I kind of think that there may be something going on, especially now, my wife knows a lot about the subconscious mind. And one thing she'll tell you is that you may think that does not matter, but you're really literally relegating yourself to a lower class of society when you're calling yourself and calling each other by that name. You just may not realize it. You may think it's harmless and it's no big deal, but you really are, because you're not going to really say that to white people. You're going to call them something else. So I think we should probably process that.
So as we get ready to wrap up this interview, our last question to you, okay? Dr. Watkins, you are the leader of Black people. Okay, no, we're not gonna make you the leader. Okay, we're gonna change that. We're gonna make you the leader of Black economics. All right. Now You have a book with the 10 Commandments of Black economic power. Is there a commandment in there that if you had a chance you would add?
Is there one that I would add?
Yeah. 10. What's the 11th? What's the 11th?
Oh gosh, the 11th commandment. I would say, I guess, understand the rules of economic warfare and let go of the fantasy of inclusion. I think that a lot of what we were fed as children about equality and inclusion, I believe that's a myth, and it proves it plays itself out in our lives when you don't get what you were promised, when you think that the world's supposed to operate a certain way and it doesn't. the reality of the world is that that freedom is something you have to fight for. It's not something that you can ask for. And also power is not something that somebody gives to you. When Dr. Claude Anderson talks about power and powernomics, first thing he does is he defines power as the ability to pursue your agenda despite the opposition of others. He doesn't say that power is the ability to pursue your agenda with the permission of other people. He doesn't say that power is the ability to pursue your agenda if they decide they're going to be nice to you. And so I think about it. A good analogy to understand power is I watched the University of Tennessee pull off a historic win over the University of Alabama. They haven't beaten Alabama in like 15 or 16 years. And
yes, I know. I was there. That's a very sad day.
Yeah, it was a very big deal, right? And you think about it, right? It's not like for 15 years they didn't want to beat Alabama. It's not, as if they beat Alabama by asking for permission from Alabama. Alabama didn't just say, "Oh, well, we feel sorry for you, so we'll give you more points on the scoreboard than us because it's been 15. We got 15 in a row, so y'all deserve one." Alabama didn't do that. They're giving up nothing. They had to fight for every inch of that field and every touchdown, every field goal, every first down. So ultimately, I think Black people have to think about life in that same way if you want to win this game. You can sit around and you can complain. You can say, "Oh, well, every time we try to build a Black Wall Street, all they're going to do is burn it down." Or every time we ask for what we want, all they do is say no. You can complain, but nobody is going to hear you complain. You are that tree falling in the woods that doesn't make a sound. The only thing they're going to hear is when you show up and demand and fight for what you want and fight for what you deserve. And when you get knocked down, you have to continue to fight. You have to continue to strategize. You have to continue to rebuild. You got to keep going, right? So I think that mindset of that being truly committed to the struggle. We always talk about the struggle, but when we talk about the struggle, we talk about it from a survivalnomics kind of way. Like, "Oh, it was a struggle being Black. I made it through the struggle. I made it out the trap." All that's good. But the struggle also can be something that leads you to prosperity and success at the highest levels. Yeah. But even then, even when you're trying to become a winner in life in general, you got to be committed to the struggle. It ain't gonna come easy. They're not gonna wake up one day and just say, "Oh, well, we care about these poor little people. We're gonna give them what they need." Don't nobody care about you. They care about you as much as you care about them, and you don't care about them. You ain't really sitting around trying to figure out, well, how can we make sure that more Asian people have jobs today? You're not thinking that. You're assuming that they got that covered. So they're looking at you they're looking at you the same way. Like, we assume that you got your people taken care of, and that really falls on. I'm biased. Because I'm a Black man. I'm looking at the Black men, and I'm like, this is our community. These are our women. These are our children. These are our people. We gonna stand up and we need to fight for this. And when you stand up and you fight for something, like my daddy had to fight for his family, you don't really give a damn if anybody likes you. So stop spending your time trying to be liked and start spending your time trying to win. That's it. If we do that and commit ourselves to the struggle, ain't nobody gonna be able to stop us ever.
Brother, that's beautiful.
Love it.
That's beautiful.
Final words to our viewers and our listeners. Where can they find you? Give us the dates of your events coming up. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the All Black National Convention is going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina, October 28th through the 30th. It's going to be 3 days of just Blackness and fun and learning and connecting and everything else. We have everything covered. We even got a spades tournament, speed dating, but we also have like tons of learning and all that. So after you get done learning all day about stocks and relationships and crypto and everything in between, you'll also get a chance to have fun and meet lots of great people. And they can learn more about the convention by going to my website, BoyceWatkins.com. And so I kind of collected a lot of stuff there, BoyceWatkins.com, everything about the Black Business School, all kinds of stuff. So if you want to elevate your game, we got you.
Well, everyone, Dr. Watkins, thank you so much for being here. Everyone at home, please remember that the All Black National Convention is in Charlotte this October 20th, 30th. Please join. Go to BoyceWatkins.com. check it out. Check out the site. Check out his books. Check out just